first ever live stream for Shutter Sport Media. Today we will be talking NHL trade deadline, live at the deadline, as we kind of come to an end here. We've got a few minutes till the deadline. So today I'm joined by Cam Sterling, and over on the other side of the room here, he's gonna have to crouch for you to see him, but we've got Eli Burl. He will be showing us where our grading goes as we take you through all the trades that have happened and bring you through how we grade each team at the deadline here. So, just to kind of set the ground rules really quick, we're going anything from the Four Nations, so anything that happened after Four Nations face-off, we're considering a deadline deal. So that goes back to the Anaheim deal right after that. And yeah, Eli's also going to maybe be monitoring if some trades come in as we get in the last 10 minutes here or whatever kind of filters after. But other than that, we're going to go through the entire league alphabetically and see kind of how we grade each team. So Cam, let's just hop right in with the Boston Bruins here.
Boston Bruins starting off with the Atlantic Division. I do like that they're starting to ship out a lot of their bottom line guys, like Trent Frederick we saw go to the Oilers. We had Justin Brazeau go to the Minnesota Wild. And big core piece, Charlie Coyle, who's been there for a while, head off to Colorado. So I don't mind that they're finally going into a rebuild. I especially like Trent Frederick to the Edmonton Oilers. It's a small piece that they're getting, but Boston was able to get a 2025 second out of it and a 2026 fourth, which is not bad for Trent Frederick and a couple prospects. So Boston's looking good. Boston's looking good.
Hold on, apparently we are hella quiet. Eli, can you turn that up? I don't know. Is that any better? Let us know.
Technical issues here.
New studio, guys. Let us know if you like the set, though. Assuming that people can hear us, I totally agree with the Bruins. I'm glad they're kind of finally heading in that, not tanking direction, but they're entering that rebuild. They've had a good run for a while, and they're getting a good haul for the players that they did move. And so I'm happy with the deadline for them. It's not like obviously going to bring them to a competing position, but it's what they needed to do.
It was definitely where this roster, where this Bruins roster was headed, and I'm glad they finally made that tough move. What would you give the Bruins on this trade deadline, Katie? I know this is a pretty personal team for you.
I mean, I give them, because of like they're doing what they needed to do, I give them like a B minus is kind of where I was at.
I like that.
It's not like they had a great deadline in terms of competing, but they had a great deadline in terms of what they needed to do.
Oh, I definitely think so. Like, obviously, you wouldn't be able to get much out of Trent Frederick, Justin Brazeau. You wouldn't be able to get like top tier prospects and top tier picks for it, but they did what they could, yeah. And I'm glad the process finally started in Boston.
For sure. How's the audio? It's brutal. Fascinating. Well, Eli. Take your name closer.
Yeah, just pull the mic closer.
Hello?
Yeah.
You can also turn it up on. Sorry guys, we're having hearing issues. Yeah, Callum, we see you, we got you. We're working on it. Okay, well, cut to Vanna White really quick, putting the Bruins at a, what would you say?
Bruins?
Flat B? B minus?
I'd go B minus.
B minus.
At the end of the day, they're heading into a rebuild. They did what they were supposed to do, but like the moves weren't earth shattering. So I'm cool with a B minus.
Yeah, that's really close.
Yeah, here we have our Price is Right lady over here.
Austin, cut back to us before
solidifying the B minus.
Cut back to us over here. No one wants to see that. Okay. Okay, Sen City's really having trouble hearing. Is it any better if we really talk into the mic?
Yeah, just keep pulling the mic closer.
Any better? Well, yeah, it would be. Okay, well, let's keep it rolling to the Buffalo Sabres.
Alrighty.
As we really, everyone crank your volume at home, apparently. We'll get there. Turn the gain up. Yeah, no, I think they're definitely trying. Austin, is it cranked on OBS?
Yeah.
Right. So Buffalo Sabres, they kind of had that one blockbuster deal. We
Yeah, this
obviously
was
got-
one of the bigger ones of today's deadline. Josh Norris and Jacob Bernard Docker head to Buffalo for Dylan Cousins, Dennis Gilbert, and a 2026 second. I think I like this better for the Ottawa Senators than the
For
Buffalo
sure.
Sabres, but I do think it works out for both teams. Buffalo needs to start making a move and get out of this torrential rebuild that they're in. And they need to get more win-now players, and I think Josh Norris and Jacob Bernard Docker are more win-now players than Dylan Cousins is.
Yeah.
They did give up a second-round pick, which is tough, but they did give up 2 core members on their roster. I like it for I do like it for the Buffalo Sabres as well. I think it's finally a big enough move to push them like at least into a possible wild card race
Eli,
next year.
my camera turned off. Can you turn it back on, please? Just hit the, like you're going to take a photo, tap that button. Guys, technical difficulties, don't worry about it. That should be fine. Right? You can see it, Austin? Holy. Tap it.
This stuff.
Guys.
Sounding better?
Probably not.
No?
No, I agree. Buffalo lost kind of the only trade they did, which I do think I'm obviously high on Norris as a Sens fan, and we'll get into this more when we come back to Ottawa. But he's really injury prone, and I do think they lost that trade.
Yeah.
So that's all there really is to say. What do you grade them?
For the Buffalo Sabres at least, I'm gonna give them. I'm gonna go C+. I think they still put themselves into contention for next year. Josh Norris and Jake Bernard Docker, as I said before, are more win-now players than they currently have. I'm glad they kept Alex Tuck at this deadline. I know he was roaming around for some other teams and some other competitors. Giving up Dylan Cousins isn't ideal, but they can make it through this rebuild without him, I believe. I'm going to stick with C+.
Okay. I had them a little lower at like maybe C- D+ area. But I'll say like solid C flat for them. Eli,
Well-
I'm sure we can find you a chair over there, guy. Like,
I mostly stick with like a higher C+-ish rating just because like this rebuild has gone on too long, and I think they finally need to achieve pieces that help them win now more than win in the future.
I agree. I just don't know if Josh Norris is the guy to do that.
Yeah.
So then to the Detroit Red Wings. This is very similar to last year's.
Yeah, they made
One for them
last
is-
year. They had a bunch of small moves, didn't do much, stayed in the mediocrity of the Atlantic Division, sitting around the wild card spot once again. I do like getting Peter Mrazek. I think that improves their goaltending depth a lot. They get Craig Smith, who's a veteran, going towards a young Detroit team. They replaced Ville Husso with Peter Mrazek, which I don't mind. Peter Mrazek, much more experienced, a former Red Wing, so familiar with the culture. They get a conditional pick from, in the trade setting, Kyle O'Coin and a fifth. Yeah, I don't mind this Detroit Red Wings trade deadline, but once again, they're still sitting in mediocrity, and I think they should have done more.
Yeah. No, last year they
I
were
don't
kind of
know.
the same as they like didn't do much, and then they just barely lost out at the deadline.
Right.
Or at the end of they lost by like one game out of the playoffs. And I think that's kind of where they're headed again this year. Is they're in that race, but they're really not trying to get much better. And I think for that, I give them like a C. Like they did make some moves that maybe improved them, but they didn't really make the push that they need to get to that playoff position.
I like that grading.
Yeah, so we'll throw them there next to Buffalo. Very different vibes going on, but kind of similar success at this deadline. Then we move to a team that Then we moved to a team that had a lot of success at this deadline, I think. 2 back-to-back great deadlines.
This is like I had them as the best deadline after acquiring Tarasenko last year, who was
Yeah.
a key contributor getting them to the Stanley Cup final and winning it. And now they had Seth Jones, who was arguably the best defenseman this year in this year's deadline, who was possibly going to go. Sending out Spencer Knight, who they later replaced for Vitek Vanacek. which I kind of like. Vanacek has been a torrential backup, even though I feel like he does have the skills to be a starter since he was in Washington. But I really like this trade deadline for the Panthers. It's back-to-back.
Yeah,
Back-to-back perfect
back-to-back.
deadlines.
They got better both times, and I mean, obviously they're defending champs, and they're just looking really scary at this point. But it's just been a masterclass on how to do the deadline these past 2 years, and I think they got better with every trade, and they really didn't lose much. Like, they've won every trade, I think, and so for that I give them an A.
I'm willing to put them an A+. I know it's early.
I didn't give anyone an A+, I don't think, so I'm willing to...
I could definitely see this being an A+.
Just for their consistency with how good they've been at the deadlines, I'd give them an A+.
Chicago retains some of Seth Jones' contract.
Yeah, that's a really big win. But that was a big win for Chicago, too. Getting him out of there, and we'll get to that.
They get a first from Florida and Spencer Knight, who is a great goalie prospect, who never really got to shine behind Sergei Bobrovsky. So I really like that trade deadline for the Blackhawks, but, I mean, the Panthers literally are my pick for the Stanley Cup before this, let alone after they got Seth Jones.
Vitek is the worst goalie of all time. Okay, then to the Montreal Canadiens. Wow, they really didn't do anything.
I mean, they're in the middle of a rebuild. They didn't really need to do anything. They got great prospects coming up. They got great young core. I don't think they needed to do anything at all this trade deadline. They're heading in a great direction right now.
I think they could have sold something.
You think so?
You know,
who would you have going?
I don't even know, honestly. I don't really.
I could see maybe David Savard. Or Mike Matheson, two defensemen who are aging and don't really fit the timeline on Montreal, who they could have gotten a pretty big bag for. But other than that, I think they're heading in a great direction.
Yeah, no, I think, listen, I had them in a D just because I don't really like them, but I think, honestly, like, they didn't have much to sell, so they should be higher. Where would you put them?
I'm going to go, I think, right smack dab in the middle. I'd go C with Buffalo and Detroit. Because they did
Fair
exactly what they needed to do.
Send City is back. Hearts for Send City in the chat. Okay, moving on to the Ottawa Senators. Now, at first, I was ready to be like, Ottawa Senators F, they didn't do a single thing. Like, it looked like they weren't going to do anything. Yeah. And I was ready to be pissed because they haven't been close to a playoff position in, like, it's been almost 10 years. And then I'm refreshing my little NHL tracker page, and all of a sudden I see Senators trade for Dylan Cousins. I'm like, okay, now we're talking. And then I keep reading for Josh Norris, and I was heartbroken. Yeah. But I honestly, they won the trade. Like, I think it makes a ton of sense for this year, especially because Norris is out. They need centers, and they need them fast.
Grabbing a second-round pick in that
grabbing
is
the second round
too.
is really
from Buffalo. That's going to be a good pick.
Yeah, true. But it really makes me scared for the future and what might happen after this year, because you saw Brady Tkachuk almost in tears. You know, like, I think not only is the locker room going to be a little off, but I think in the years to come, there's less of a reason for him to stay, maybe. Unless, like, he's a good captain. He should stay, obviously.
If they keep winning, I don't see why he
wouldn't
leave.
Yeah. So that's the only downside, I think, is losing Norris and what he brought to the team from a locker room standpoint, but it was definitely a win in terms of
I think
ceilings.
I think this is definitely right in the B range for the Senators. I'd go straight B if
Yeah. That makes sense. I
think Dylan Cousins is going to contribute immediately when he gets
I think so too. And him and Norris have very similar ceilings, but he is way less injury prone. Right. Knock on wood, stay healthy, please. But yeah, I like the trade. As much as it like hurts my heart, I like the trade. Okay, next, Tampa Bay Lightning. I was a big fan of their trade with Seattle.
I loved the trade with Seattle.
And we had them kind of as like a playoff exit in our midseason review, and I think this deadline made them significantly better.
Oh, by far. If there's one thing that Tampa didn't really need to focus on, it was depth, and they still added an insane amount of depth. They currently have, I think, 4 or 5 players with over 25 goals this season. And now they add Oliver Bjorkstrand and Yanni Gourde, who are easily, like, 40-point performers. And I think, like, having those guys on your third and possibly even fourth lines is, like, extremely good. They did have to give up 2 conditional firsts and a unprotected second, but
But if they make a push this year, it's worth it.
They are possibly going for a push this year, even after losing Stamkos, which is crazy.
Yeah.
But, the Tampa Bay Lightning look dangerous.
And for that, I have them A- territory.
I'd put them A-, B+. Yeah, I didn't expect this out of Tampa Bay.
I think just because it was so surprising, I'm like,
After
okay,
the
A-.
Stamkos trade, I thought they were going like, okay, we're
Rebuild,
getting old.
yeah.
We don't have many prospects in our farm system.
Yeah, throw it there.
But they're going at it again.
They are. And like if you look at where they're already at in the standings too, like,
yeah, it's great.
makes sense.
Brandon Hagel's having a hell of a year. Nick Paul's playing great on the second and third line. Like they have some sneaky players who are playing great. Anthony Cirelli, and now they get Bjorkstrand and Yanni Gourde. I love it. I love it for the Lightning.
Is Marching Panthers actually real? Is Chat like kidding or? No, I've never been to Fleming College. That can't be real, right?
I don't see it yet.
Savisha's really scaring me.
Could be any time.
There's no way it's real. He's just gonna like lick everyone in the.
I don't see anything. We will await.
Okay.
For a possible Marchand
While we wait
trade.
for that, which would actually
I know there's a couple players
insane.
In the league that are like if they're going at the strike
the last
of midnight.
minute.
But
Take a peek. Okay. Anyway.
yeah, nothing.
Elliot
yet.
Friedman apparently. Bowman, but everyone's talking about it. Friedman posted about it. Okay. Anyway, we're going to the Leafs now. They made that one move minutes ago, hours ago, maybe at this point. What do you have to say about that, Cam?
I think it's a great move for the Leafs. I think they needed that one more piece to get them over the hump. It's a very small addition, but I did really want them to get Eric Johnson in this trade. He was going for dirt cheap from the Flyers. He's a former Cup winner. Yeah.
Freeman says last minute possibility. Hearing Brad Marchand could be traded to Florida. That would be insane. Just the amount of beef they have.
That's unbelievable. But I thought Eric Johnson would have fit great on Toronto over Benoit on the third defensive line. Toronto really needs some former Cup winners on that roster to get them over the hump in the first and second round. I mean, they just released Ryan Reeves, who is their only Cup winner.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think Eric Johnson could have helped them a lot, and they didn't get him, which is shocking for one of their best prospects and a first-round pick. So, I don't love Scott Lawton unless they can re-sign him for cheap, because he's 32 years old. He's putting up maybe 30, 35 points a year. Unless he goes berserk in the last bit of the season and helps them in the playoffs, I don't love giving up Gulbenkian and a first.
Yeah, the first is kind of.
So I think they're right in the B territory. I think Lawton, at the end of the day, he's going to help them more than Gulbenkian because Gulbenkian's not on their major roster. But
would you go flat B, B minus?
I go B minus.
B minus. Those three teams you have
at the end of the day,
really
Toronto needed to make a move, and
they
this
need
was
to do
the
something.
move they made, which I don't mind.
It almost felt last minute, like they were like, "Oh, we need to do something.
We need to get this trade done. Let's just put in a protective first." Yeah. It is top 10 protected, which probably will not happen.
Yeah.
And I don't mind. They need to let go of one of their prospects.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, and with that, we move on to the Metro. That's all for the Atlantic. So, starting off with Carolina Hurricanes. Listen, I'm high on Stankoven, and they got a bunch of picks for it. I think that's a good trade for them.
If there's one thing that Dallas can spare, it's depth, and Logan Stankoven is on a rebuilding. He won't be in Carolina, but on a rebuilding team, he's a possible first liner, in my opinion.
For sure.
And they get 2 firsts and 2 thirds from Carolina.
That's a haul.
It's a freaking haul that Carolina had to give. They got Mikko Rantanen for 2 months and got that instead. I mean, I think it's a win for both teams.
For sure.
Dallas stays one of the top teams in the league, and they get one of the best wingers in the entire NHL. So, I mean, Carolina. I still think Carolina made out like a bandit in this deal.
I agree. I think this is a great move for them, especially going forward. They're a young team.
It's a literal reset button from the Rantanen trade earlier and they got like an exponential amount of additions in this trade compared to the last one.
Yeah. What would you give it out of?
Honestly,
Agreed.
Carolina. What else we got? It's on the same level as Tampa. I'd go
I
A
agree.
minus.
Yeah, A-. Because, like, they didn't really need to do much, honestly. They were in a pretty good spot, and this just...
Honestly, they're still in a good spot,
That's
even losing Rantanen. I mean, they can spare They get Stankoven,
sure they
who
can.
is going to contribute in the playoffs, and 2 firsts and 2 thirds, which is a crazy haul. And the score has officially updated Marchand
No
to
way.
Panthers. Yep. Bruins reportedly trading captain Brad Marchand.
Oh, my goodness. Breaking. Not really breaking because everyone in chat
The
already
return
knew.
is currently unknown.
Really?
Who do you think's in that bundle?
I don't know.
Because we're on the Columbus Blue Jackets, who didn't do anything.
Yeah. What do you think the Bruins would even be looking for? Like,
Oh,
it's
man.
so unclear as to where they're going right now.
I can't even think. It could be one of the Finns, like Luster, or Anton Lundell, or maybe Forsling. Could be one of them, but they definitely want someone young. There's no way they're giving up Marchand for somebody over 28.
Yeah. Man, that's crazy. Him reunited with Bennett after Four Nations. Four Nations just bringing people together.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, I guess he's not going to the Leafs then. That's
Oh, my bad. Columbus did do something.
Oh, I thought they did.
Just half an hour ago, they acquired Drew Coonan from the San Jose Sharks for a 4th-round pick. Okay.
All right.
Okay, Columbus. You did, Columbus has, they've had the best lineup in all of hockey throughout the year, statistically, with Kirill Marchenko, Dmitry Voronkov, and Sean Monahan. This Columbus Blue Jackets team shocked, everybody in the NHL. I'm excited to see what they do throughout the
Yeah,
later
and
half
honestly,
of the
for a
season.
while, they probably didn't make a move for a bit because it didn't look like anyone in that East wildcard race was making a move.
No.
Ottawa didn't do anything. Detroit barely, at that point, didn't do much. And then everyone started to, and they were probably like, oh, shoot, if we want to make a push, we have to do something.
Yeah, and all they did was just acquire another piece to go into a playoff race. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. So, Columbus Blue Jackets, giving up a 4th pick for a major roster spot, I'd say a C+.
Yeah, but even before they made that
Yeah.
move, I had them at a C, so
Yeah.
making a move brings them up to a C+, I think. Yeah. Svi says if Boston doesn't fleece Florida, I swear, I agree. Boston needs to win this like crazy, because giving up your captain is insane work. Oh, he didn't get to retire Bruin, and that actually hurts my heart.
Not only he goes to the division rival.
Yeah, and the past playoff rival. That's actually crazy. Okay, anyway, moving on. New Jersey Devils. I, just to preface all this, thought they were going to go out and get the Jack Hughes news just broke.
Yeah.
I thought they were going to go replace him at this deadline. That did not happen.
I mean, Devils are still securely in a playoff spot right now.
But if they want to do anything.
They added 2 guys, Brian Dumoulin and Cody Glass, who immediately will contribute on the major roster. Cody Glass won't replace Jack Hughes, but he'll fill that spot somewhat. And Brian Dumoulin adds to that incredibly stacked defensive core with Siegenthaler, Dougie Hamilton. I mean, you can go on and on about the defensive capabilities of that core. And Brian Dumoulin is just another piece to add to that, so I like that trade for the Devils. Giving up a second for him I don't love. But, I mean, the Devils needed to make a move after Jack Hughes went down.
Brandon Carlo to Toronto.
Brandon Carlo, wow. Boston is breaking down.
They are. Do we have to move
And
them?
and I love it.
Do we have to
love
move
it.
them? Do we move them up for that? Depends what they get in return. We don't know
Depends
yet.
what they get
We'll
in
leave
return,
them there for
but
now.
this Boston rebuild is
It's
5
full
years
swing
too,
apparently now.
5 years too late.
No, they still
I think
competed.
so.
I think it's fine. It's perfectly on time. They were still competing the past 2 years.
Competing, they made the playoffs.
Hey, and that's all I ask. And that's all I ask of my team. Okay, back to the Devils though. I would have thought they would have scrambled for a star power forward, but I like what they did. They're, again, securely in a playoff spot probably, and they probably aren't going to push for a cup this year with that move, but they added what they needed to, really.
Yeah, I think they did. They did what they could with the roster they have. They couldn't give up too many pieces to go get that big star to replace Hughes because they're in a playoff race. And
Help with the Bruins, no. Yeah.
So I think they added enough pieces that could contribute in a playoff race, and I'd give them.
I'd throw them at B-.
Yeah, I'd go B- with the Leafs and Bruins.
We'll see where the Leafs and the Bruins move to after we get some more info here.
Boston's just doing deals with their
they're just
division rivals.
Yeah, that's crazy. They're like, hey, if we can't be in the playoffs, at least all of our guys can. They're just being nice, really. Okay, moving on to the Islanders. Firstly, they absolutely just won with that Brock Nelson deal.
I love that move for both the Avalanche and the Islanders.
Yeah.
The Islanders are another team that I think are destined for a rebuild right now.
They're very similar to the Bruins. They're like mediocre playoff teams in the past few years, and I think they're finally giving up on those mediocre dreams.
Ever since Tavares left, they have been very mediocre. I think it's finally time for a rebuild, and like Brock Nelson should have been the first to go in that rebuilding process. I think they got a pretty good
they got a massive
package
haul for sure. Callum Ritchie's a great.
Oliver Kylington is fantastic.
Well, they flipped him to Anaheim.
Oh, flipped him to Anaheim. Okay, I don't mind
for
that.
Again, future considerations.
Yeah, future considerations.
But they got a bunch of picks out of it, and I like Callum Ritchie a ton.
26 or 27 first, 28 third. I mean, coming from Colorado, I don't know how good that pick's going to be. Hopefully it's a 2027 for them in case Colorado takes a decline.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think the Islanders have been destined for a rebuild for a while now, and I think Brock Nelson is a good one to kick that off.
Yeah, and honestly, because of this, just like finally they're doing it, which I think they needed to, and because of that great haul for Brock Nelson, I have them around like A-, B+, just because it's really what they needed. It's not like
I wouldn't put them in the A range. I think
it's not like a crazy deadline for them, but it's genuinely just what they needed to do, and so for that, you're definitely going to be blocking.
I'd probably go B. I think they're on the same level as the Senators. I don't think they're better than the Senators by giving up Brock Nelson and only getting a first and a third in Callum Ritchie. So I think B is a good spot for the Islanders.
Yeah. You take it away with the New York Rangers 1 sec. Our producer just gave me a little note.
New York Rangers had a so-so deadline, I want to say. I think the Rangers are another one that are destined for a deadline or a rebuild. Actually, they brought in Calvin DeHaan from Colorado by shipping off Jimmy Vesey, Ryan Lindgren, Hank Kempf. Not too bad of a package for them. They got a second and a fourth in that deal as well, but it was a good rebuilding trade. But Calvin DeHaan, not a great return. You would want a younger player than DeHaan. Shipped off Riley Smith back to the Vegas Golden Knights for a third.
Yeah, he
Brendan
returns.
Brisson. And then Carson Soucy for a third. I don't know how Vancouver did that. Carson Soucy is not worth a third, especially when that third is coming from San Jose, which is basically a second-round pick. And I think this is a very, very mid-draft for the Rangers.
Yeah, and I honestly had like interesting deadline. They like kind of sold, but they also kind of bought.
Yeah.
And that's just kind of where this team's at. Like they're giving me
very much
whiplash.
so.
They're like bottom of the league, dumpster fire.
I don't
then
know how
they're back in the playoff race.
They're so mid.
Like they're just really confusing, and that's kind of just what they gave at this deadline is like, hey, what are you doing? And also
they replaced Jimmy Vesey and Ryan Lindgren and Riley Smith for Carson Soucy and Calvin DeHaan. I mean, and then a couple picks.
Yeah, and I was higher on this deadline before all the other East wildcard stuff happened. Now I'm like,
I think this is a very mid-trade deadline.
I had them around
D+.
C+. D+ though, I'm with it. They're really confusing.
I do not like this deadline for the Rangers.
I just don't like the Rangers. They're not given this year.
Yeah.
Now on to Philly, which is an interesting one again.
As I said before, I don't think Scott Laughton was worth a very good prospect and a first-round pick. I think they made out like bandits with Nikita Grabenkin, who's going to be great for Philly. Getting that top 10 protected first-rounder, and I don't know if they'll get that in 2027. It might get deferred. They shipped out Andrei Kuzmenko for a third-round pick, which isn't too bad. But considering what they gave up for Kuzmenko, which was, I believe, the Morgan Frost and Joel Farabee trade, I don't like that at all. Maple Leafs do, in fact, get Brandon Carlo as we speak.
Oh.
But, yeah, I don't like
We'll circle back.
flipping essentially Morgan Frost and Joel Farabee for a third-round pick.
Yeah.
I think Philly is another one that I'd go pretty mid. I'd probably go C- right above the Rangers.
And that's actually where I would have had them if they
Yeah.
didn't do anything.
Yeah.
And so they kind of just really didn't do much.
I think we got to edit these
Yeah.
Boston Bruins because they...
Do we have what the returns were?
Let's check.
More to come still.
More to come.
Okay, well, we can't
Waiting
really...
on the Brandon Carlo and the Brad Marchand trade, but
We'll leave them where
these
they're at for
Bruins-
now because we don't know
these
what's...
Bruins have been decimated today.
Yeah. Hopefully they were able to... Yeah, Austin,
Alright.
I know it is.
Pittsburgh
Since
Penguins.
Delaware.
These Penguins were active.
They were active, but really, what were they doing?
I mean, they shipped out Michael Bunting, which is a sign that they're going into a rebuild. That was probably the number one piece they needed to ship out. That's not one of their core four, because I know they want to keep those around. I know Josh Alderman wants those wants those to stay around. They shipped out Anthony Beauvillier, which is another one that they needed to ship out. Luke Shen got flipped for a second and a fourth to Washington,
Yeah.
which is nuts. And then they brought in several prospects from New Jersey and a third-round pick for Cody Glass. I think this is exactly what Pittsburgh needed to do. They needed to ship out their second and third lines that aren't helping them and keeping them from a rebuild. So the Pittsburgh Penguins didn't do a lot last year, I remember.
Yeah.
So shipping out Michael Bunting, Anthony Beauvillier, Luke Shen, and Cody Glass, who aren't win-now pieces nor rebuilding pieces. I love this deadline for the Penguins, actually.
Yeah, I didn't love the Bunting deal, but I do really like the Beauvillier
I think Tommy
deal.
Novak's going to help. They ship out a fourth with it, which, I mean, getting a second and a fourth for Luke Shen, which they flipped from that deal. So essentially they got Tommy Novak, a second and a fourth for Bunting and a fourth. I like it. I like it a lot.
Where would you put them?
They're going to be high. I'm going B+.
Really? B+.
Yep. I think this is exactly, it's not a great deadline, but it's exactly what this team needed.
A plus?
Yep.
I'd throw it like B. Like, I think it's
B?
on pace with, like...
I think
it's
it's, be- I
like
think-
the Islanders,
I think
though.
it's
It's what
better
they
than the
needed.
Islanders.
Yeah, but it's a very different situation.
I mean,
Kind of. I don't know.
I'd be okay with B.
I think a B.
I
Like,
do
those
think
three teams are all kind of like
yeah.
did what they needed to do. Okay.
Okay, on to the Washington Capitals, who were the team that acquired Anthony Beauvillier.
Yeah.
It's very small for a second-round pick. I think
Shea Weber to Chicago. So we should just breaking news in the chat here.
I don't know if Anthony Beauvillier is worth a second-round pick, but Washington
Where are we
is
getting
in a huge playoff race right now. Beauvillier will help that instead of how much a pick will help that this year. Washington second round 2025 pick. It won't be worth a lot, so I think they could afford giving that up. Again, it's pretty mid.
Yeah. It's kind of like it might have even been before that broke. I was like D plus
Yeah, I think
area.
Beauvillier got traded to the Predators at last deadline for like a
He did,
fourth
yeah.
round pick,
It's just
and Washington gives up a second for him. I don't think he's worth that.
Yeah.
I'd go. I think they're on the same level as the Flyers at
Flyers
C-.
C minus? Yeah. We'll go C minus. Shea Weber, where are we hearing Shea Weber news? That's why I
Shea
didn't-
Weber is not playing.
Also, great feel great story
Thing
apparently
you know,
from Elliot
Carey
Friedman.
Price got traded to the Leafs.
Colorado is bringing back Eric Johnson apparently. Okay.
On to the
That
Central.
that wraps up Metro. We'll head to Central now with the Chicago Blackhawks. If this Shea Weber thing is true, then that's added.
It is not true. Shea Weber just got traded to the nursing home.
But For Chicago, I mean,
I
just
really
hats
like
off. They got rid of
Like
the
Seth Jones'
Jones deal.
contract is gone. They only retained 26%.
They needed
They
that.
acquire Spencer Knight, who I love on
Yeah.
the Blackhawks specifically. I think he'll get so much
He's
reps.
saying it's true. I believe.
No way. Sabish, no way.
Sabish, where? Where are we finding this news?
But they get a unprotected first round pick, which is very nice for the Seth Jones deal.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I love the Spencer Knight fit with the Blackhawks. I think Spencer Knight is one of the most underrated backup goalies just because of how much of a workhorse Bobrovsky is.
Austin saying Kevin Biggio to the Habs. Just gotta flex the Kevin Biggio to the Habs. We'll put him in a Habs jersey next. You can purchase this sticker or these sweaters.
Ooh.
Shutter Sport Media merch. Anyway, oh, you can't even see my sweater. Merch. Anyway, yeah, no. Chicago Blackhawks.
I do like the addition of Joe Veleno as well.
Yeah,
I mean, Craig Smith didn't fit the timeline. Peter Mrazek they replaced with Spencer Knight in the Seth Jones deal. I mean, I think Chicago Blackhawks are looking good.
Well, they're not, but they're looking better.
They're looking better.
They're not. They're never looking good, but no, honestly, mainly because of that Seth Jones, I'm like willing to put them in the A range. Like,
I don't know about A.
But not like ranking the team, but like what they did this.
I think this is exactly what the Blackhawks needed to do, and I think they did it better than what the Pittsburgh Penguins needed to do and the Islanders needed to do.
So you throw them
so
at B+?
I'm going B+.
All right. I'm happy with that. The A was mostly a joke, but like give them whatever you can. Kudos for Seth Jones.
Kudos to Blackhawks fans.
Yeah. They managed to bring a little bit of promise in these dark times.
Yeah. I'm a huge Spencer Knight believer. I think Bobrovsky plays more than any other goalie in the league.
Yeah.
And Spencer Knight never really got a shot behind Bobrovsky. So, yeah, Spencer Knight like literally entered the league as soon as the Panthers returned to glory, and they were like unbeatable.
Yeah.
So I'm so glad he's going into a rebuilding team and actually getting reps.
I was gonna say he'll get lots of reps.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then to the Colorado Avalanche. I mean, I think they got a little fleeced, but like it was with the Brock Nelson one. It'll help them right now, but long term, not a great.
I mean, considering like how Colorado has like slipped in and out of the playoff race after they got second rounded last year in a believe it was a gentleman's sweep by Dallas. I don't know what direction this team is going after they gave up Rantanen.
Yeah.
But they really got some good core pieces who can contribute immediately. They got Jimmy Vesey and Ryan Lindgren from the Rangers, which they didn't have to give up much for. Brock Nelson in the Islanders deal, as you said, and Charlie Coyle from the Bruins.
That's a good one.
That's a really good addition on their because the main thing that beat them in the playoffs by Dallas was the forward depth. Colorado had a very thin bottom six, and Dallas did not. Dallas had I want to say 9 players with over 30 to 40 points last year, and I think this is exactly what Colorado needed to add. They had a Jimmy Vesey, Brock Nelson, Charlie Coyle immediately to add with the forward depth.
Yeah.
And I think this puts them right back into the Cup playoff race.
Yeah, and obviously, I'm a Bruins fan. I'm high on Charlie Coyle. I think that's a great addition, especially playoff-wise. Like, he's got the experience there.
I think it's an instant upgrade from Middlestad.
For sure.
I'd probably put them maybe on the same tier as the Devils at B-, possibly B. What do you think?
I think B-.
B-, yeah. I think they're on the same tier as the Devils. The Devils made a lot of mid-tier additions that will help them in the playoff race, and that's exactly what Colorado did as well. So I'm cool with B-.
Mm-hmm. Okay, Dallas Stars. They weren't doing much, and then
Until
they obviously
now.
had the Mikko Rantanen.
Mikko Rantanen on the Dallas Stars is so dangerous. It's unbelievably dangerous. This team already has, as I said multiple times, unlimited depth. They just retained Wyatt Johnson a few minutes ago for, I believe it was 8 years, 64. Getting Mikko Rantanen on that roster as well is absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah.
It was a big haul that they gave up, but
is.
the Dallas Stars are going to be perennial Cup contenders for the next few years. They have such a good core, such a good young core, and those picks won't be worth much as unprotected
Yeah.
firsts. I didn't quite see what years they were from, but
Is that out yet? I know it wasn't when it first.
yeah, I love the. I think this is going to be an A for Dallas. This is the move that they needed to make.
Yeah, I mean, I had them at what's that? Okay, interesting. So really quick to wrap up the stars here, I had them at like a B when they didn't do anything, and now I think that moves them up for sure. So yeah, I'm good with like what, A minus, A?
I put him A.
A.
I think Nico Rantanen is so much better than what the Lightning did.
Okay, so apparently, two Ottawa, Zetterlund, Robbins, and a fourth from San Jose for Ostapchuk, Gregor, and Ottawa's second in the 2025 draft.
Zetterlund on Ottawa is dangerous. Oh my gosh.
Also, I think you're echoing because you added another mic here. What's happening? What are you doing? Yeah, but why? Get rid of that. No. You don't need a mic. Okay. Yep, okay. Wow, okay. I think that's a good, I don't know. That's, I mean, good on both ends.
I think Ottawa adds another piece.
Yeah, Zetterlund's a good steal.
Yeah.
I feel bad for San Jose.
Yeah, that's
I love
tough.
San Jose.
I love Fabian Zetterlund.
I think that's a good pickup for them. I really am not familiar with Robbins all that much. And a fourth, which is nice.
No, Gregor. He's a young core piece, but I do
like him.
He helps a lot.
I thought it was Ridley Gregg when I first looked at it, and
Yeah.
I almost peed my pants out of fear.
I like that trade a lot for the Senators.
And Ostapchuk, I like him, but like.
Do you think that moves them up to B+?
Do you?
With the Blackhawks?
I
think
you
that
know what?
puts them
Yeah,
on the
if we have
same
the
level as the
Blackhawks up there,
Blackhawks.
yeah.
They acquired Dylan Cousins and Fabian Zetterlund.
Yeah, that's good. I mean, yeah.
That's huge.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, Eli, we're moving the Sens.
Sens are moving up.
To B+.
They're already on the board. They're moving up. Don't stand in front of the camera while you do it. There we go. Yes. Okay. Wow.
Okay, I think we
Where
don't.
were we? We were just at Dallas. We're headed to Minnesota. We don't have any info.
Heading to no info on the Brandon Carlo
Boston's
trade
still a
quite
mystery.
yet.
All right. Okay.
On to Minnesota. This Minnesota team is another one, like the Columbus Blue Jackets, that shocked me this year. They are borderline cup contenders with the performance that Kaprizov is putting up. So they needed to add some win-now pieces. They added Gus Nyquist for a second. I don't love giving up a second for Gus Nyquist.
Yeah.
Justin Brazeau is going to be a good piece, but again, this doesn't push the needle that much. They had a lot of playoff contenders that made way bigger moves than they did.
Yeah.
So I think they needed to do more. What do you think?
I think Nyquist will play better on Minnesota than he did in Nashville.
Yeah,
I think
I do
all the
think
players they
so.
got will do better, probably where they are now. Maybe not Brazeau, but yeah, I
think this is pretty middle tier.
I said meh, like
I
B
think-
minus
I think
C area.
Ooh, I'd go C.
Well,
I'd
judging
go
by what
C
we've done
minus.
now, I'd go lower.
I think
yeah.
this is on the same level as what the Washington Capitals did with Beauvillier.
Yeah,
Maybe a little bit higher. I don't know because
I think it's around what like
I go.
Detroit. I think it's
I go
around what
C.
Detroit did.
I'd go C.
I'd go C, flat C.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we might have to roll a little quicker here.
Alrighty.
We'll see. But that's okay because Nashville's still it's just a
Nashville.
question mark. They were a question mark heading into the deadline. No one really
Acquired
knew.
Michael Bunting.
But like,
Okay.
what's their direction? They don't have
I
direction.
have zero clue what this
We didn't
direction
know,
of
and
the
we
Predators
still
were.
don't.
I
This
thought
deadline
they were
gave us
gonna
no.
be
Yeah.
a lock for the playoffs coming into this year
Yeah.
with Jonathan Marchessault and Steven Stamkos. Obviously not.
No.
They acquired a second-round pick for Gus Nyquist, as we just talked about, but I don't know what to think about this Predators team. I don't know what they needed to do. I don't know what they are doing. For that reason, I put them on the same level as the Rangers. Maybe
Fraser Minton is part of the
D.
return to Boston.
That's big.
Oh, we'll come back to that in a minute. Don't want to leave Boston where it is, Eli. Don't touch anything. Where would you throw Nashville? Sorry, you said
I'd
it and I
probably
got distracted.
Oh man, this is the worst I've seen.
It's bad.
This is D.
Would you put him in an F? I don't
I
have
wouldn't
anyone
go
in
F.
F.
I
don't
wouldn't
have
go F.
anyone
They
in
get a second for Gus, which I think was
I
an
agree.
overpay, so that immediately puts them over F. F has to be abysmal.
I think
this
a D.
is a D.
Like a
This is
flat
straight
D.
D.
Yeah. St.
Because
Louis.
this is the worst I've seen. I
Yeah.
don't know what this Predators team is doing. They obviously expected to be better, and they're just not.
They're just not. It was crazy. I thought they were a cup contender last
Yeah.
year. Okay, we still don't have all the details, but we know Fraser Minton, that is good for Boston.
That's very good for Boston.
Okay, St. Louis Blues. They didn't end up doing anything.
Yeah, I think they could have sold something. They had
For sure.
Parayko still on their contract. They had Braden Shen, who was floating about, but he was getting way overpriced for 2 first-rounders. I think the Blues, it was time to sell on Shen, and
Yeah.
they just didn't.
It was time to sell in general.
Yeah, I do think out of the teams, like we saw Columbus do borderline nothing, we saw Montreal do nothing, and that's what they needed to do. St. Louis needed to do something.
Yeah.
So I'd put them a lot lower. I'd put them D+.
Yeah, I'd put them in the D area.
Yeah, D+.
D plus. Yeah, and then, but seeing the other side of it now, Utah didn't do
Utah
anything,
didn't
and
do
I
anything,
like that
and they
for
are
them.
playing unbelievably. I think they're in a perfect spot.
I agree.
They're borderline a wild card team, which is
They're good. Yeah,
nuts.
they're close. I don't think they'll make it, but I do think it's a great first showing
It's a
for them.
great first
Especially
step.
when you look back to where they were when they were
Yeah.
Arizona. It's a
Dylan
major.
Guenther's looked fantastic. Logan Cooley's looked fantastic.
Yeah,
I
they've
love
looked
the
great.
look of this Utah club.
And I like how they're like their own prospect pool. Like
Yeah,
they're just
I
working
think
from
this
within, and I
is-
think that's
this is
great.
exactly where the Blue Jackets are. I think they go right.
That's
in
what
C+.
I was exactly gonna say. Right next to the Blue Jackets, there on C plus. C plus. C plus. Yep. Yay. Okay. Boom. Okay.
Winnipeg
Oh,
Jets.
they requested a dab.
Ooh.
Yeah. Okay. Winnipeg
I
Jets.
actually really like this
I do
deadline
too.
for Winnipeg. They're another contending team. They did a little bit more than the previously mentioned Minnesota Wild, which I think Winnipeg needed to do because they're in the same tier as the Wild, where they weren't really expected to be cup contenders, and now they're one of the best teams in the league.
Yeah. I still think they'll choke in the playoffs.
I think
but-
Shen's going to help. They overpriced a lot for a second and a fourth for Shen. They brought in Brandon Tanev for a second, which is
Yeah.
you pay more for Luke Shen than Brandon Tanev. I mean,
Which is crazy, but you know what? They got there in the end. And
yeah, I like these individual additions.
Yeah.
I do think it's a fairly mid deadline considering what they gave up for both of them. I'm blown away by the overpay for Luke Shen.
yeah.
The 1-for-1 goalie swap with Florida Capo Kakinen is out for Chris Drieger.
It doesn't really.
It doesn't do anything. I love the addition of Tanev. I
do
hate
too.
the overpay for Shen.
But it's
Puts
still a good
him
addition.
right in the C+, like Utah and Columbus, I think.
Yeah.
I think this is under New Jersey and Colorado, and this is not as bad as like Minnesota.
No, yeah, it's not. Yeah. Pretty mid. All right.
On to
Moving
the
into our
Anaheim
final.
Ducks, who are the
final
kings of
division.
future considerations.
Yeah, and honestly, they got away with some steals
love it.
because of it.
Oliver Kylington for future considerations. Billy
Yeah.
Husso for future considerations. You wonder what those considerations could be. We were talking about before the live stream, like this could be like a vending machine.
Yeah, it's just
in
like the
Moneyball, or
the travel bus, I think.
Yeah, like like a new cooler or something. But I love Oliver Kylington's fit with this team.
Yeah.
After losing Drysdale, they needed another young defenseman, and they get it for future considerations.
That trade makes me so sad.
And like I love the direction
Yeah.
of Anaheim. They replace Brian Dumoulin with Kylington, and Dumoulin does not fit the timeline. They bring in a second for Brian Dumoulin, which is nuts.
Yeah. No, they got a good
I
haul.
think
on-
Anaheim stole at this deadline.
They did, especially like depends what those future considerations are, but
I'm-
they got really far with just future considerations.
I'm
Hey, I had B plus. I don't know if that affects.
I'm going like A minus territory.
Throw 'em up there
I'm
with Carolina.
Unbelievably shocked at how good this rebuild for the Ducks is going.
Yeah. I mean, it's been going
Like,
well.
brought in Cutter Gauthier for Jimmy
Yeah.
Drysdale. Replaced Drysdale with Oliver Kylington the next, months later. Like, brought in a second-round pick for Brian Dumoulin. How do they get these trades?
They've been getting some good looks, and I like it. I like it. A minus for them. Calgary Flames.
They're way overperforming. I
Yeah.
don't see them winning with this team. They're probably going to be the wild card over the Vancouver Canucks. I don't know what my Canucks are doing either. We'll talk about that
We'll
later.
get there.
Calgary, they're really in the middle of the pack. I don't know what they could have done to rebuild. I don't know what they could have done to make a move. I think they're torrential C- right in the Flyers and Capitals territory.
Can you put them in C like their logo?
No, they're a C minus, unlike their logo.
I think Montreal did a lot better of a job doing nothing than Calgary did doing nothing.
Yeah, I agree. They did nothing way better. All right.
On to the Edmonton Oilers.
They did a lot.
This Jake Wallman trade is my favorite trade of the entire deadline. I
Yeah.
cannot describe how perfect of a fit that Wallman trade is in Edmonton. The number one thing they needed to do, and they're already the number one cup contender as far as odds go, is defensive defensemen.
Yeah.
All they really had for top line defensive defensemen was Matthias Ekholm, and now you got Evan Bouchard and Darnell Nurse, who are great on the offensive side, and then Jake Waldman and Matthias Ekholm, giving up a conditional first and Carl Berglund for Jake Wallman. Although I love that return for San Jose, at least getting a first out of that, I absolutely love the fit of Jake Wallman in that trade, and getting Trent Frederick from the Boston Bruins. I love that addition as well.
I like him just as you're making the playoffs, reinforcing with Trent Frederick, who is a great playoff player. He just has that gritty play style. I think that's a crazy. I was hoping he would go to the Sens. That was my top pick. He'd fit in so well.
I hate the Edmonton Oilers with a passion, but seeing Jake Wallman on that roster,
yeah.
I didn't have that in my mind going into the deadline, but it is a perfect fit.
Yeah, Sabisha agrees with you. Yeah, I have them A minus.
I'd go A.
A?
Yeah.
With Dallas, yeah.
Yeah, this is on the same level as the Mikko Rantanen trade. Getting Trent Frederick and Jake Wallman, who both fit that team perfectly.
We're low-key going to have to rapid fire here.
Alrighty.
But that's okay, because LA was kind of boring, so.
This LA Kings team, I've said this to many of my friends. I don't know what they've been doing for the past 5 years. This team is so torrentially mid. They
make the playoffs.
They get in the third seed of the Pacific to lose to Edmonton every single year in a sweep, and that's just their life.
That's what they do.
That's just their life.
And I don't think they're going to change that.
Andre Kuzmenko for a third-round pick. I like that. The 1-for-1, Joseph Ciccone for Tyler Madden. It's nothing much, but Kuzmenko for a third. I mean, it doesn't help them a lot, but it's still something to keep them in the playoff race. I'd go C minus.
Yeah, I had them flat C.
I think C once again, it's the same level as the Beauvillier trade.
Yeah. Okay, San Jose Sharks. I think they did what they needed to do.
Yeah.
To sum it up
Jake
really
Wallman, brought in Desharnais for a fifth.
Oh, I guess they sold Zetterlund as
sold
well.
Sold Vanacek.
You know what? They really good return on that.
Sold Zetterlund as well.
I honestly would throw them around B plus.
I go right in. No,
right
I
in
go
the
right in B. I go
Put
right
them where
in B.
Ottawa was. Yeah. Yeah, I think that they did what they needed to do, and they actually did it quite well. Seattle, they sold, obviously.
Yeah, Seattle was a big sell. Sold Brandon Tanev, Oliver Bjorkstrand, and Yanni Gourde, 3 of their oldest players. Brought in a second for Tanev, a second and a first, and 2 firsts, for Bjorkstrand and Gourde. I love that return. Seattle is going to be a very young and dangerous team in 4 or 5 years with those picks coming up.
How would you grade this for them?
I'd go right in the B as well.
Yeah.
I think that's
fair.
San Jose rebuilding once again.
Yeah.
And Seattle did the exact same thing.
Yeah. Okay, your Canucks rapid fire, but
Vancouver. I don't know why we did not sell Brock Besser. That was one
Yeah.
of the players I mentioned before that could have gone at the strike of midnight or the strike of 3 o'clock today. They should have traded him because they're not going to re-sign him for a bag, and he's going to leave anyways. But getting a third for Carson Soucy, that is previously from San Jose, is unbelievable. Carson Soucy has been very mid since he came back from injury last year. So getting a third for next year, which is already going to be good, from the Rangers, who we, in my opinion, fleeced on the Miller trade as well. I don't mind it. I'd put him right in the middle of the pack with C plus.
Yeah, I had them like C-ish.
Put him C plus.
C plus. Yeah, right in the middle there.
Yeah.
All right, and then Vegas. They didn't really do much. They didn't really need to.
Yeah, they brought in Riley Smith. That keeps them competitive with other Pacific teams who've made big moves. They're already like one of the cup contenders in my opinion. Once again, Riley Smith is definitely a win now move as well. It's not some youngster for a rebuild or like a big move like that, but it's just somebody who can contribute immediately and is familiar with the environment in Vegas, being one of their expansion draft players.
Yeah.
So I don't mind it. I think this is another C plus, B minus.
Yeah, I had them around.
Move.
I'd go B minus. I had them around. Yeah.
Now let's take a look at these.
Yeah,
Marchand
I mean,
and
we don't have
Brandon
a ton of time.
Carlo
See if you can find any
Yeah,
more
I'll try.
details. But we're basically gonna have to wrap up here because we're low-key running out of time.
We will sum up that Fraser Minton is one of the core pieces
of
going
that
into
Carlo,
the Brandon Carlo
yeah.
deal, which is huge.
What's on anything on Marchand?
Nothing
Nothing.
on Marchand yet. You're just
So-
gonna have to wait and see.
You'll have to wait and see. That's all we have for you, me and Cam. We will have on our YouTube. This VOD will be up on YouTube, so if you missed anything, you came in part-time through, you can go rewatch the whole thing of us talking. Maybe don't listen to the volume at the beginning, don't worry about it. But we also have our hockey expert, Clint Householder, who's going to be doing a video recapping kind of everything that happened. So if you want a shorter kind of replay on all of that and some of the details that we don't have yet, because crazy, this was actually an exciting deadline.
Very much
Last
so.
time, I think we
it
had
was
it all
better than
wrapped
last
up
time.
for sure. Last time, it was like a week before and all the trades were done. And now we're really going to the deadline here, and even past, as we are running out of time. So that is kind of all we have for today. I'm sure I didn't miss anything here. But yeah, we're hopefully going to stream more on here, so throw a follow-up on here, and then also we've got more stuff coming up in the future. Follow us on our other socials. I forget what side. I think it's right here. Yep, right here. Follow us on our other socials, and again, check out this VOD on YouTube or new streams coming up. We're going to play some games. We're going to have some, I think, live trivia coming your way, so look forward to that one. End of April. Nope, end of March, beginning of April. But that's about all we have from the trade deadline, live at the deadline. He's Cam Sterling. I'm Katie LeBoutillier. Thank you so much for watching. Oh.